Thank you. We're going to move right into our opening statement. I will say the opening statement. Feel free to follow along and join in. There is only one power and one presence in the whole universe, God the good, who is all power, ever present, all knowing, and we are one with that power and that presence. Now for our vision statement. We are a spiritual community with a passion to share love, faith, and hope. Our mission statement is, we are an accepting, loving, and faith-filled spiritual community that honors all paths to God. I would like to introduce Dan Champion, who will be sharing a mini lesson on the 12 powers with us this morning. Thank you, Dan, for being here.
Thank you, Teresa. Last week, we introduced June as the sixth power, that of imagination. The disciple that was assigned by Charles Fillmore was Bartholomew. The faculty associated with this power is the third eye. The color is indigo or ultramarine blue. The Sanskrit word Anja chakra is known as the seat of intuition and also translates as perception, beyond wisdom, and command. This is the center of wisdom, conscience, and higher consciousness. In the first chapter of John, Bartholomew was called Nathanael, and Jesus saw him under the fig tree before Jesus actually got to the fig tree. And the inference is that Jesus, using his third eye, discerned Nathanael's presence before he actually got him in his vision, a physical vision. The third eye is the highest chakra in the physical body and gives the concept of sixth sense, clairvoyance, and strong intuition. When balanced and in alignment, it trades black and white or me versus them thinking for wider perspectives and interconnectedness. When out of balance or blocked, tension in the brow area, disassociation, and mental fog may occur. Some ways to bring the third eye back into alignment are through yoga, meditation, and a guided meditation designed specifically for the third eye chakra. A sound meditation that targets the third eye region has one slowly verbalizing the seed syllable Om, pronounced with an O vowel sound. Open-mindedness is also very important for the balance of this chakra. Affirmations are a very good thing. What is suggested is bringing into your daily routine a few of affirmations, and I'm offering you a few for using a few affirmations to help in this alignment. I honor and trust my intuition. I learn from my experiences. I am connected to the universe. I have clarity and peace of mind. I look both inward and outward for wisdom. I am receiving and I am trusting. So I would encourage you to do your own study about your own third eye. It will aid you in harnessing the great gift you all have, imagination.
Thank you, Dan. All right, now it's time for a love offering. There are baskets at the back of the sanctuary, and if you're Zooming, you can also donate through our website. The abundance is love and everywhere and in every moment. Love is expression, not just monetary gifts, but talents and inspirations and whatever we're called to share, say, or express. Even your smile and a simple act of kindness is a gift to the world and others. Let us hold and honor all abundance by saying, divine love through me, bless and multiply all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. Dan was born in northern Michigan. Early on, he learned that there are many perspectives and many paths to God. He explored different religions and understandings. And even as a teenager, he started to study the occult, metaphysics, and higher consciousness. In 1969, he moved to East Lansing. He has earned degrees at Michigan State University. He has studied with Reverend Claude Jewell, who was a psychic and who taught higher consciousness and metaphysical interpretations of the Bible. He also started a ministerial course there. In addition to these things, he has studied astrology, handwriting analysis, Native American spirituality, martial arts, business management, electronic repair, and he and his wife own an electronic specialist company in Lansing. Then in the 1980s, he began a membership at Unity of Lansing. He has read many of their books that would be found in any Unity bookstore. And it is last year that we have been graced by him and Luann's presence at our church here in Jackson. Very happy to have you with us in our church community and with us today to speak, Daniel. Thank you for being here, and now we will move into the Lord's Prayer.
Close your eyes. Breathe deeply and fully. Just relax. See the light in your heart expand with each breath. This is your connection to the divine. With every breath, this beautiful golden light expands and fills all of your beingness. When the ideal within your mind connects with the love in your heart, miracles happen. This is our true nature. Whatever you can perceive and believe, you can achieve right now. It is here for you in the silence. In the silence. from the nothingness, the no thing, and the place of no thought is everything you can imagine. I am the source of all good, and I am free. Namaste, and so it is.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Daniel Champion, and I'd like to speak today on a topic that a lot of people try and avoid. And it's called, oops, I made a mistake. And I'll share this childhood memory that happened when I was 5 years old, and that's still very clear. I had just reached for some more salad at the dinner table when I think I was around 5 years old. And I tipped my glass of milk over, and the contents ran over me, my dad, and my sister. Clumsy oaf, my dad bellowed, and this voice still comes in loud and clear whenever I knock something over by accident. So mistakes happen, and our inner dialogue can either be a way to increase our inner awareness or tear down our self-esteem. I would suggest to you that making a mistake is not the same thing as failing. When you make a mistake, you can learn from it and fix it. You can learn from a failure. So I have 5 suggestions that I would like to put out there that can be a way that we learn from our mistakes. Number 1, own your mistakes. You can't learn anything from a mistake until you admit you made it, and then inform others who need to know, apologize, and tell them you are working on a solution. Saying, I'm sorry, takes courage, but it's better than trying to hide your error or blame others for it. And the chances are very good that people will remember your courage and integrity long after they have forgotten that original mistake. So we use emotional willingness to make as many mistakes as necessary to gain knowledge of self through observing how and what our mistakes had been. Number 2, reframe the error. How you view your mistakes determines the way you react to them and what you do next. Like most of us, you may look at your mistake in a negative way, but if you can reframe your mistake as an opportunity to learn, you can turn the experience into a positive one. Once you acknowledge a mistake, think about how you could prevent it from happening again. And stop beating yourself up and think about what you have gained from the situation. With mental openness, we learn from our mistakes and don't have to repeat the same ones over and over again. Number 3, analyze your mistake and ask yourself these questions. What was I trying to do? What went wrong? When did it go wrong? And why did it go wrong? Was this a new mistake? Or was it a mistake that has been repeated over and over again? Number 4, put the lessons you learned into practice. And this is a critical step. Life routines and habits may force you back into old patterns. Self-discipline and motivation will help you avoid self-sabotage and give you the rewards and benefits of implementing this new knowledge. At this point, you need to identify the skills, knowledge, resources, or tools that will keep you from repeating the same mistake. Be careful, as quick fixes usually don't work for very long. If your mistake was a minor or personal one, personal goals or action plans may lay the groundwork for using the lessons learned. Number 5, review your progress. You may have to try out several ways to put your learning into practice before you find one that is successful. It allows you to prevent the same mistakes. You may want to involve your friends and coworkers for feedback. Now I'd like to get into some advanced areas about mistakes. Learn from the mistakes of others. Accept and learn from their experience so you don't have to repeat it. And Groucho Marx once quipped, "You can never live long enough to make them all yourself." Learn from the mistakes of your teachers. And quite often we'll find a teacher and we'll just sit there and believe every single word and concept they have and forget to use our thinking faculty to test it. Is this knowledge practical? Is this knowledge useful? Will this knowledge work for me? And if it's not working for you, throw it away. The mistakes of teachers are usually very big ones, and we do not often expect them, and they can really surprise us. And then there's the concept that we have, oh, I just want it to be perfect. I want it to be mistake-free. Well, forget that. God is the only one that is mistake-free and has perfection. We're a work in progress. Don't expect to become mistake-free, because making mistakes in order to learn is the path most of us humans must take. We humans tend to have a difficult time following advice, even when it's good. We all know we should do work that makes us happy. We all know we should live a healthy lifestyle. We all know that relationships are more important than money, but it doesn't matter. We usually mess up anyways. Knowledge can be passed down. What does that mean? Well, names, dates, blueprints, data can all be transferred. Especially in this day and age, we have computers and hard drives that throw more knowledge at us than we can process in 5 lifetimes. So knowledge is universal, but wisdom is personal, very personal. You can't learn wisdom from a book. You get it from living and making mistakes, experiencing failure, and getting hurt now and then. The great men and women in history did not achieve success because they had an easy ride and did everything right the first time. They made mistakes, lots of them, but they learned. Because each of us is different, we can't know if something will work for us unless we try it. When talking about his experience in inventing a light bulb, Thomas Edison said, "I have not failed. I just found 10,000 ways that won't work." This illustrates the fact that once you have failed enough, you'll have a strong store of wisdom to help prevent future failures. And eventually you will start to succeed. So in closing, I would like to share some thoughts from Dr. Wayne Dyer on mistakes. Quote, "Perhaps the greatest mistake we can make, which causes loss of self-respect, is making the opinions of others more important than our own opinion of ourselves. You'll find no shortage of opinions from others directed at you. Critics hang around and wait for others to make mistakes, but the real doers in the world do not have time for criticizing others. Why? They are too busy doing, making mistakes, improving, and making progress." And it's my wish that you have some new insights on this thing we call making a mistake.
People who are joining us through Zoom, you can stay muted, please, until you want to share. Raise your hand or give some indication you'd like to speak, and you can come to the mic if you're in person, or just start talking if you're in Zoom.
I'll slip in here and make a comment before our guests on Zoom. Please do, after you hear us. This was wonderful for me. I feel like I've made a lot of mistakes in the last week. And on Thursday, I made another one. And although they haven't ended the world, I think the best thing that I've learned about it is reflecting on how I feel when others make mistakes and realizing, asking for help in dealing with it. That's just how I handle it when I get a bad feeling. I found that as I forgive myself, I forgive them. And as I forgive them, I forgive myself. It's a giving and receiving experience. And it's important, I think, to look at the intention when you make a mistake. And that has been a beautiful revealing to me too, because I think when the intention is as pure as you know how to make it, at what you're doing your best, as the fourth agreement says, and you still screw up, then you don't feel quite so guilty. And it's a lot easier to forgive yourself. But that is a very important step in life, and finding the ability to align with our more loving, kind self and part of learning not to judge. So that's all I have to say.
Thanks. This is Mark. I do make a lot of mistakes, and there are times when I work with people and they make mistakes. And what I'm discovering is two things. That a lot of mistakes is based on a misunderstanding in our communication. That the good intentions are always there, but the good intentions of one person to help another, while the other person wants something a little differently. A disconnect in our communication. And I think part of the learning and the growing is to look at the communication. The two people can say, okay, what did you mean? Or what did I mean? Or what were your intentions when you did this? And to have that communication. The other thing is sometimes it hurts when people make mistakes. That causes more time, it causes aggravation, it causes misunderstanding. And sometimes a lot of people don't want to feel the pain of hurt. So there is a tendency to want to blame. I don't want to feel this pain. It's easier to make you wrong than to feel that pain. So in some ways, when you make a mistake, it is a great opportunity for connection at a deeper level, when someone can be vulnerable to what's really going on inside of them. And so that connection is, at least for me, so important. And we had a hiccup with our system here. Whenever we do some pioneering work or go to the edge, and this church is going to the edge all the time, trying new things, there is high risk of failure. And in that high risk of failure, the most important thing is connection. People support each other. That, Virginia went to the edge and tried to do something with the Zoom and it didn't quite work out, but actually it did work out. But in that process, I wanted to know that we are connecting, that we are working together as a team, and as we're trying to solve this. And when I make a mistake, and I make them often, I feel bad. But through the connection of people, especially the people here with Pat, with Luann, it's okay. It's okay. Because it's so easy for me to say, I'm the mistake, instead of I made the mistake. And through the connection, we can say, hey, it's a mistake, you're okay. And then through that connection, I have the insights, and then I touch that creativity that is holding the solutions. But when I'm in shame or saying I'm the mistake, I cut myself off from my own divinity and can no longer see the answers. So really, the timing on this is serendipitous. So thank you.
One thing that in my research on mistakes, that if one is engaged on a high risk activity, the reward should be very great that you give yourself. And an example of this, when IBM was in its early formation, one of the vice presidents was assigned a project that was very risky, and it failed, and they lost $1 million at a time they didn't really have that much money to lose. So the president called this vice president in, and the vice president said, well, what are you going to do? Fire me? And he was expecting to get fired. And the president shot back at him, fire you? We've just invested $1 million in your education. You're now a very valuable member of our team. And he gave him another project.
We're all on different spiritual paths that overlap. I'm talking about everyone on the planet. And a strong part of my spiritual path in recent years has been to look at situations and see how I'm thinking about them, and then ask myself, can I see this situation in a more stronger light of the infinite? In other words, what if I think of this in terms of the infinite? And with mistakes, I understand that the multiverse is infinite. And I understand that because the divine is working in all of us all the time, it never lapses. It's always working. We may not allow it to work fully and completely, but it's always working. So if it's always working, the infinite divine is always at work in us. It's always working for the good. Therefore, any mistakes that we make have to be worked for the good automatically. It would be the automatic nature of the infinite divine multiverse to work all of our mistakes for the good. So sort of like weaving a tapestry is one of my metaphors. There are flaws in the threads and yarns of a tapestry, and yet they are worked by the artist to create a totality of good. And I would think likewise, the infinite is always working any mistakes we made into the good. And I do know some Bible scriptures because I have an evangelical background from way back. So Romans 8:28 says that God or multiverse or divine is working all things for the good. So we could rejoice. We could be really happy about that because any mistakes we make are going to be automatically worked for the good. It's the nature of God and the universe to work it for the good. So that's my number one point, is if we look at it in light of the infinite divine multiverse working all things for the good, then we can be happy even with mistakes because it's all going to get worked out for the good. And then the second thing And I think I brought this up at a previous gathering here. I don't recall when, could be a few months back or a few weeks back. But I had been sharing that, and I'm bringing it up again. One of my favorite authors is Doreen Virtue, and she had something that she would advise people to proclaim when mistakes were made. And it was basically, and I don't have the exact wording here, but basically, I declare or affirm that any negative effects of any mistakes I've made in thought, word, or deed are hereby erased, transformed, transmuted with a good, nullified in all directions in space and time, forward and backward in time. And knowing what we know from Einstein and other quantum physicists, we know that space and time are always in flux, they're always bending. And yes, time goes forward and backward, and our consciousness is wandering across infinite universes within the multiverse at all times. We're all moving through time and space. Therefore, it is indeed, from a scientific perspective, it is indeed not only theoretically true, but I would think practically true, that indeed any mistake can virtually be or actually be nullified and erased in time and space, because time and space can bend to cover it, erase it, transform it, transmute it. So that's really good. If we can affirm when there are mistakes that they're really you can either affirm Romans 8:28 that they're all working for the good, and or affirm that the negative effects of any mistakes are instantly erased in all directions in time and space. I like those two things. So that concludes what I'm sharing for today.
Mistakes, we spend a lot of our time in life. It takes away from us being at one with each other. And we spend time being separate, because I look at myself and I have three choices. When I make a mistake, I can either own it, or else I can ignore it and blame, which that's what I think I did a lot of my life. You blame the other person, or the other, it was the other side that was wrong. Or blame and escape, and meaning you'll do different things to take your mind off of owning. So I'm learning in my older age to just own it right away and say, yeah, okay, I was off the mark on that one, be it something I said, did, thought, whatever. I think our biggest mistake is that we do think we're separate, not worthy, so we don't like to go to that place and reflect on why and how we came, like Dan said, of our mistakes. But I think most of the people spend a lot of time trying to validate that they didn't make a mistake by blaming somebody else. And we could just make a shortcut and own it and say, okay, I was off the mark there. And here's the tricky part. It's really a perception of where it's coming from. Is it the other person that says you made a mistake because they're looking at it from their point of view, and so you own it right away? Or is it your perception because you don't understand, like Dan said, the understanding part? So it's a tricky thing. It can change shapes on us, and makes it easier for us to not own it. That's all. Thank you.
I'm remembering a couple of times at work where one person immediately admitted their mistake and apologized, and I had been right in a certain situation, and how I felt about that person compared to another person who made a mistake and tried to hide it or dismiss it, but it was evident through our electronic trail that it had happened. And so I'm recalling the feeling of trust and honesty in the first person who admitted their mistake, and the feeling of mistrust in the person who tried to hide their mistake. And it's a good example, like what Dan started with, is to immediately own the mistake and apologize for it is a much shorter and better route to fixing it and moving on.
I'm really happy that you brought this up, Dan, because in my earlier life, one of my biggest challenges was not to identify with my mistakes as part of my being. When I made a mistake, I would feel so mortified, humiliated, and embarrassed that it was so painful that I often blocked myself from trying anything new. Fortunately, the universe always has a greater plan for healing. As I got more involved in electronic specialists and became a higher profile, there was no way I was going to avoid trying new things because they happened every day. Little hurdles for me to come across. And the next version of the mistakes experience, where I would be so certain that I was correct in how I filed warranty claims with manufacturers, never occurred to me that I could make a mistake, that I would blame them for something being wrong in their system, and very certain that I was going to prove them that way. Well, that's not a great stance either, because over and over again, I would be gently led into, and not so gently, led into the place where I had made a mistake. And again, I was embarrassed, not so much, but what I learned is to approach something that I don't understand with someone else is to say, I don't know if I'm seeing this clearly, but something's off here. So it could be something that I've done or something in the system. Could you help me with that? Revelation, to the point where now I'm getting a whole lot better. Trying new things, knowing that mistakes can happen. And I think from the point of self-love, like Teresa said, that when we make mistakes and personally identify with it, boy, it's a big separation thing. It's really lonely. And when opening up to the possibility of, oh, I'm going to try this anyway, well, if I make mistakes, so what? So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dan. It was a wonderful speech, both on the 12 powers and the lecture sermon as well. When you mentioned your father yelled at you, you clumsy oaf, I was immediately transported to my youth when my mom would say something that, that was ugly. And it was, I think, your father's way of saying, you can do better. But the difference that I see that my mom's was, and getting a little bit to this mistake idea, was the intent. If I had done something inappropriate without the intention, my mother would correct me in one way. But if I was purposefully, being bad, naughty, mean, then she would say, stop being ugly. And I think, the thing that I would like to take from that is we are not the mistake. We may have made the mistake, but we are not the mistake. It is, taking that from that. So I want to thank you for helping me clarify that distinction.
And in closing, I want to thank our speaker, Dan, our meditation creator and presenter, Luann, music, David, thank you, Virginia on the computer, Mark for facilitating the discussion, and anybody else who's contributed to this service. Next, we will close and go into the last part of our service, which is singing the peace song and then saying together, air protection. The light of God surrounds us. The light of God. The love of God enfolds us. The love of God. The power of a God protects us.
I am the power of God.
The presence of God watches over us.
I am the presence of God.
Wherever we are, God is. We are divine, and that's the truth.